safety should be a forethought, not an afterthought. And prioritizing safety opens doors in the drone industry, clearly, as can be seen by all of the different standards, guidelines, regulations, rules that are becoming more and more implemented and just increasing in number and in detail. Companies that incorporate recovery systems show their customers and investors that they value safety, thereby gaining the confidence and trust of their interested parties.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 383. What are the current trends in UAS parachute recovery systems? For that question, we head to Monte Sereno, California, to speak with Gene Engelgau, CEO and founder of Fruity Chutes. Fruity Chutes manufactures premium quality parachutes for a variety of aviation-related customers. Parachutes made by Fruity Chutes are known for their dependable and high performance in unmanned applications. In addition to producing parachute recovery systems, the company provides drone manufacturers with free technical support for full recovery system integration. It also assists manufacturers with obtaining certifications and waivers related to FAA and ASTM standards, as well as other national and international regulations. Since founding Fruity Chutes in 2007, the company has established itself as the leading provider to the UAS industry of a broad range of parachute recovery products, optimized for lightweight at high strength capacity. Fruity Chutes is the first UAS recovery company to have a customer using their parachutes obtain an Operations Over People Waiver, an Operations Over Moving Vehicles Waiver, and a FAA Type Certification. Gene has been part of the Silicon Valley tech industry since the late 70s. He has founded several tech startups, both in the early internet e-commerce space, as well as the hobby radio control industry. He has experience in electronics hardware design, embedded systems, enterprise software, and web systems design and databases. Gene has also had a passion for aero modeling. He's flown RC aircraft and rockets for 40 years. Gene has two daughters that hold key roles in the company. Janice Englegau is the lead communication specialist of Fruity Chutes, with nearly a decade of experience working in the UAS industry. Developing methods to better educate the industry on parachute recovery has been the main pillar of Janice's work with Fruity Chutes. Gene Engelgau is the head of content and web development at Fruity Chutes. She integrates her inquisitive mind for drone applications with her experience in visual design, written media, and web development. She is committed to educating the UAS industry on the vital role of parachute recovery systems. In episode 171 of the Drone Radio Show, recorded in 2018, I interviewed Gene and Jan as they introduced us to Fruity Chutes. In this episode of the Drone Radio Show, Gene, Jan, and Jane discuss how changes in the drone industry in the past 3 years affect the design and use of parachute recovery systems. But before we hear from Gene, Janice, and Jane, I want to thank those of you who have been supporting my funding campaign. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. Go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And by the way, if you have a great story on the use of drones that you'd like to share on a podcast, contact me at randy@droneradioshow.com. Now let's learn how parachute recovery systems can protect your UAS assets with Gene, Janice, and Jane Engelgau of Fruity Chutes. Let's pick up the interview where I asked the three to introduce themselves.
Okay, I'm Gene Engelgau, and I'm CEO of Fruity Chutes, and also probably would call me the founder of Fruity Chutes.
Hi, I'm Janice Englegau, and I am the lead communication specialist.
And I am Jane Engelgau, and I'm the head of content and web development for Fruity Chutes.
Gene, start us off with a brief overview of Fruity Chutes. What does the company do?
Fruity Chutes is a manufacturer of professional aerospace recovery systems and solutions. And what that means is that we manufacture parachutes and other related goods used for drones, rockets, aerospace. It's kind of like all things unmanned. So we have a very broad product line in that respect.
Janice, how did the company get its start?
We opened shop in 2007, actually, and it's kind of a fun story. So if you caught on, we all have the same last name and we are a family company. And so the story is my dad, Gene, he was in hobby rocketry and wasn't very happy with the quality of the parachutes he was getting. And so he thought, well, I can make my own, or rather my mom, his wife, could make them because she sews. People were blown away by the quality of the parachutes and were interested in purchasing them. And that's really where the business started. Just a few years into the business in 2009, we started getting inquiries for drone recovery from some military and university type customers that were like, hey, we want recovery for our system. Is there something you can do for us? And really, it took off from there. We still serve the rocketry market, but drone parachute recovery is the bulk of our business. So our roots are very much in rocketry, and we've really expanded to cover so many unmanned sectors.
Can you tell us about your product line and what makes it special? Jane, would you like to start?
We, of course, are most well known for parachutes. And we also provide parachute launchers, parachute launching systems, the different hardware, electronics that you use to mount the systems onto the UAV and integrate them to have them be fully incorporated and harmonious with your system. And our products, we've developed them over time to be at this level where they can be used with any type of airframe, any shape of airframe. We've grown to have a huge weight range capacity from just as low as 1 kilogram to 200 kilograms and upwards. All you have to do is start combining our launchers and using multiple together, using multiple parachutes. But even that in itself is just a huge range going from 1 to 200 kilograms. We have extremely high quality, high strength shock cords, harnesses, all these components that add to the parachutes, which are already themselves sewn to a very high standard. And all these things come together to create a very reliable and efficient and effective method of recovering and protecting your UAV.
I think other things that make us special, I think, is that, we provide a very high level of support to people. We don't charge for support. When the customer wins, we win. So our goal is to make them successful. I think the other thing is we try to have, I guess what you say, transparency. We don't want to have this mystery around what we do. So, we spend a lot of time with customers up front, introducing them to the product line. And then also a lot of times I'll help out with like trying to select the right solution for them. And some solutions can be quite novel. For instance, you could have a fixed wing system, but then you use a parachute launcher like for the drogue chute. And so it's hybrid systems. So I think that's what makes our product line interesting, is that we don't make products that are very highly tuned to a single product type, and that's all it can do. But it's like the building blocks. Sometimes I've referred to it as being open source, right? Open source in the sense that you can mix and match and to try to get as integrated and as tight a solution as possible.
When I first interviewed Gene and Janice in 2018, Fruity Chutes was just starting to enter the drone market. How have things changed in the past 4 years? And how has the company responded to those changes?
In some respects, the fundamentals haven't necessarily changed that much. But what's changed, I think, is one is the industry's changed. The sophistication of the drones has definitely changed. We saw that at Commercial UAV Expo, just based on the size, sophistication of the systems. The cost of the systems, $300,000 for a large drone carrying LiDAR cameras is worth having an investment in safety systems. The first real specific, I think, that's really good for us is that Matternet, who we began work with some time ago, got their FAA Type Certification. And for people who aren't quite familiar with that, that means that using our parachute system is certified at a level of reliability similar to a commercial aircraft. So that's amazing. And our parachute, played a lead role in that because it helps directly in the safety case.
Wasn't Fruity Chutes the first UAS recovery company to receive that certification?
Yeah, we are the first and the only company to have that. Now, there's another certification which is towards testing to a standard, and that's ASTM F3322 committee. I, as well as a couple other parachute companies, as well as manufacturers, were part of the work group to develop a standard which, when tested to, can be provided to the FAA or other civilian aviation authorities as being proof of the reliability and the safety of the system. That was probably about a 2-year project going through the ASTM and developing that. Something else too is some years ago, you look through like Part 107 rules and that, and a lot of documentation, you couldn't find parachute listed anywhere. Now, the FAA specifically has documentation published which outlines and parameters different weight ranges and types of drones, and also explicitly specifying that they need to be below like certain weight and impact energies vis-a-vis a parachute. So that's specifically now called out in FAA documentation. The other thing is that on Type 4 certification, the FAA has made a distinction with companies that do provide parachutes compared to don't as to how many hours and to what level they need to test to. And for companies that integrate the parachute system, the requirement and the time, the flight testing is half what it would be without. So this is called your highest weight category of drones, right up to 55 pounds. The FAA likes a safety case that's built around a parachute system.
You have something called the Raven on Landing Parachute Release System. What is that?
So what the Raven is that, one of the problems, the parachute's great, drone lands, and then the wind catches the parachute and then drags it. Now, just the fact that it landed made the safety case, right? Because it lands more softly and slowly. But then for people who have their several $100,000 LiDAR camera, now it's being dragged on the ground. So what this device is, it's a compact device that's completely mechanical. And what it does is that it allows the parachute to open and it stays attached during that time. And as soon as it lands, it unloads, then the device clicks and releases the parachute right at the moment of landing. So these devices have been around for a while. The military has had devices, but this is, I think, one of the first ones that is compact, can work over a wide weight range, and there's been a lot of interest in it as well. So that's the Raven on landing parachute releaser. We call it the Roper.
And you say that's not yet in production, but soon to be, right?
Yeah, we have limited units, but we're gearing up to be able to make these in higher volumes. It takes a lot of testing for these because it is mechanical, so it takes quite a while in testing to make sure that the device is stable over a long period of time.
What's an automatic release system used for?
So the automatic trigger system is a device that can automatically detect that the drone is doing something that it shouldn't do. For instance, multicopters, unless you're flying FPV racing or aerobatics, they don't fly upside down. There's just things that they don't do. They should never free fall. There's a lot of things that they don't do. So what an ATS does, and ours is called the SATS Mini, Sentinel Automatic Trigger System. It has an IMU, which can then be parameterized to detect, like, for instance, it's rolled too far and too fast in a given amount of time. If it's free fall, there's a bunch of other different types of tests, like rate of descents exceeded. And also specifically, it's been designed because the ASTM, the F3322, does call out that for the purposes of ejecting a parachute, you need to use a device separate from the autopilot. You can't rely on the autopilot to eject the parachute, because what if it crashes? I mean, what if the software crashes? So that device is currently being designed in by quite a few companies as their go-to device that meets that requirement.
And not only does it meet that requirement, but it brings in such a huge benefit by having something that can work without being connected to the autopilot, and you can have it automatically released. It can automatically send the trigger, and it can manually send a trigger by you connecting it to your own controls, to your own radio system to communicate with it separately from whatever devices you already have, or integrating it however you choose.
Yeah, it's very, very flexible and integrates with the rest of the drone, or it can act standalone as well in case that's what it has to do.
How do all of the products fit together on a drone?
Yeah, well, you can imagine the roper is something that actually sits right in the parachute system in line with it. The SATS Mini is not that unlike an autopilot. It's about the same size, but it has a specific function of only looking for failures and anomalies in the flight envelope of a drone, specifically for that. It's about the size of like a matchbox, you know. It's a small device, it's flexible, and you just mount it on the drone, configure it all up, and then you plug in the parachute release device, like a CO2 system or something else, into that, and it will then activate the parachute if there's a problem.
So you connect it to whatever form of parachute launcher you have installed, and that's what it's going to communicate with to trigger.
Does the pilot have the ability to guide the descent of the parachute, sort of like how a paratrooper is able to pull levers on a parachute?
When it comes to guided PRS, we get questions every now and then about if we incorporate that and if we want to work on that, use that, all sorts of different ways of saying essentially the same thing. And what we see with guided PRS is that incorporating it requires a more significant increase of weight that's added to your system. As of this current moment, all of our systems, once integrated, add an average of about maximum 5% to the prior total weight of the system. So that's a very small amount to add on. But once you add guided systems, it's going to add a lot more weight because you're adding a lot more capabilities, sensitive technology, doing a lot of reading. And we've found that by the great majority of our customers, they prefer to have the lightest possible system over a system where they can just choose to navigate it just a little further this way or that way, depending where they want it to land. For them, it's all about having something lightweight and ensuring that they will not lose flight time. They will not waste any energy or battery. And that's really been the priority that we've seen and that we meet and that we care about and uphold.
Yeah, I think it really adds a lot of complexity, and also it could be a point of failure too. I think just as easily. I mean, it takes a sophisticated system to do that.
Are you able to describe the type of customer that uses Fruity Chute systems?
The majority of our business is B2B. So when it comes to parachute recovery, it's so much easier when you're manufacturing it in at the start. Certainly it can be an afterthought, but it's so much easier when you can manufacture it in. So really the bulk of our customers are those that are manufacturing our parachute recovery into their systems. We do work a lot with different service providers. We have a good number of military customers, as well as customers who are prosumers and hobbyists. That's still a section of our customers, but really the majority of our customers now are manufacturers.
Do UAS manufacturers typically incorporate your parachutes as a standard feature, or do they come to you with a special order based on a customer's request or use case?
There's some of both. A lot of companies will start out, let's say it's a delivery company, because we have quite a few of those customers, obviously. So they'll start out, kind of going down the path of just trying to get their hardware and their platform and everything set. And then they'll get into it. And then they have to start looking at how do we actually get the FAA to agree to let us fly this thing? And then based on the rule set, then they realize we need a parachute system. So they'll start looking at that. So I think usually they try to solve let's try to get a vehicle together. But I think the more enlightened ones do have the idea that they're going to have to look at a parachute system, because they're not going to be able to fly it over people or be able to make a safety case without it. So it's a mix of both.
We've had a thorough, wide range of both seeing they already have something that they're working on, that they're building, and they realize, oh, we need a parachute so that this is safe, as well as, well, we already had some kind of backup system, but it was based on software, and we realized we want something that is physical, that if something software-wise crashes or fails, we have something physically built in to save our valuable systems or valuable technology and payload, et cetera. So whether they're replacing or adding to or bringing in from nothing, bringing in this new system of recovery, it's just all across the board.
Looking forward, what applications are starting to emerge and could use parachute recovery systems?
Some of the businesses that are more obvious, like drone delivery or large commercial drones designed for large commercial applications. But interestingly, we've had the emergence of really applications that we never thought of before that use parachute systems. One of the most interesting being parachutes that play a part in this anti-drone or drone defense industry. And, the parachutes there are used either because the vehicles are large and they need a recovery system, but then the parachute can also be part of the mitigation device. And these are systems that go out and basically hunt drones and protect areas from other types of drones that you can consider to be hostile. And you can just imagine what that could be, right now. But that market just sort of grew up and has really starting to turn on. It's a really cool market.
How would a parachute system be used when encountering a rogue drone?
So people are working on drones that can net other drones out of the air. And then they don't want it to just fall to the ground. So then they need a parachute system. It's an interesting technology, and there's some companies that have taken this into a really advanced stage. So that's a market. There's also other companies that, at least for us, we don't necessarily know what they're doing, except we have contract numbers provided by the defense industry that then we build to. So that's something that's emerged for us. I don't think we could ever have that if it wasn't for the product line that we have, it being diverse as it is. If you focus on prosumer drones, you're not going to have something that those markets need.
What have you learned about the drone industry over the past many years?
A few points that I would say, I guess, is the diversity of it. There's as many interesting applications out there as there probably are companies, and learning new things all the time about like what they're doing and then how we might work with that. So it forces us to innovate or tune the product or maybe think in different ways.
Something that we've definitely found with the industry, just because we have technically been in it for 15 years. So we've really seen it begin and change and grow and explode, and especially through the pandemic, change a lot through that. And something that we really have consistently seen is the more that we have listened to our customers' needs and created products first and foremost to fit those needs, the more success that we've seen, and the more that we have grown, and the more focused we've been on our customer success rather than our own success, the more that we have grown. And I think really that has been why we have lasted and grown through these 15 years and continued to grow through the pandemic.
How does Fruity Chutes maintain that customer dialogue so that the company can stay ahead of the trends?
For us, it's really the high level of support, making sure our customers have all the information they need. We really believe safety shouldn't be a secret. So first of all, it's supporting, we're not big gatekeepers. We're not out here keeping a bunch of things secret like you do see in much of the industry. We want our customers to really know what they need. It's also a very high quality of products. The parachute for us is our bread and butter. It's the parachute before the launcher. You can't have a parachute launcher without the parachute. And so for us, making sure our products really meet the standard our customers exist. And then, I mean, just listening and being open, a lot of our products, like things like the roper, was something we created because we heard there was a need. We created our own automatic trigger system because there was a need. We expanded our launchers with spring and CO2 systems, for regulatory reasons that we realized a lot of our customers required. So I'd say listening and definitely being flexible, I think, has been a big, big thing. I think, it's really easy as a business to get rigid and have a structure and be immovable. But if the industry is changing and people are asking for different things, it's in your best interest to listen to that and change and adopt, even when it's difficult to do.
Have you been surprised by anything in the industry?
I really would say less surprised, but again, what we've had reaffirmed for us is that transparency and support and flexibility are the keys to growing and, maintaining success. The more that we listen and meet expectations, the more we grow.
I think there's less surprises and more affirmation, especially myself. I started evangelizing this stuff, in 2014 and 15. I remember there was this LA drone show. It's the first drone show I went to down in LA, and I flew down, and my wife came down the next day. And then we saw, some of the, the drone people that are still at it today. And I immediately right then started saying, this is a safety system, and evangelizing it. And so over time, we see how it's grown. And I formed quite a few ideas over time. And I think there's more affirmation of past stuff I thought would come to be true than there has been. Like, well, geez, no one has actually needed these. I'd be surprised about that. That hasn't happened.
Something that we could definitely say is sort of a surprise, but really is something we've hoped for early on and have continued to prioritize is safety becoming appealing. So early on in the drone industry, people often express these ideas of, well, if it's unmanned and we can make things automatic, we don't need anything to protect it, it's just fine on its own. But over time, we've definitely seen people realize, oh, safety is actually really sexy. We want safety. And you see that through groups like the FAA, CAA for different countries, ASTM standards, all these different rules, guidelines, standards coming up that tell you it's extremely important. And then people say, oh, that is extremely important. And hey, we don't want to lose all of our valuable, precious assets that we've spent so long developing, so much money on, and all these payloads that belong to whoever we're delivering for. We want them to trust us. So that is something that I would say maybe has been a bit of a surprise, is we didn't expect people to so quickly realize its importance, but we're really glad for it because it's clearly of such great value.
What advice would you offer to other entrepreneurs in the drone industry?
Depending on what they're doing, let's say they're forming a business or they have a business model and it involves drones, and it's going to have to involve, especially regulatory issues. They'll come out way ahead in the game if they consider safety first instead of, oh, darn, now we have to do safety, So one thing we say is safety shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be a forethought. It should be on the business plan, right at the start, because you're going to have to deal with it, But I think that's one important thing. The other thing is that I'd really like to be able to work with manufacturers of drones and the electronics and software suppliers, because I think there's a role they can play in allowing integrations to be more seamless and transparent, just by being able to add, a few key features to the stuff they're doing would allow a parachute system to really integrate so cleanly. The parachute systems work. The bigger issue we see is that how the drones and some of their systems are integrated, don't provide some key features that we would really like to see if it was an ideal system.
How does that early integration benefit manufacturers?
It would facilitate easy recovery system integration for everyone who uses their products. So it's a direct benefit to those companies to make those modifications. And when someone then wants to add a safety system or parachute, they can easily do so. and we can provide them with technical support, as we always have and will continue to do, which includes answering any questions regarding integration, giving input on ways to make implementing recovery easier, et cetera. And we're also open to providing input for the manufacturers themselves, for those making the drones, making the drone electronics, who are interested in ensuring their products allow for recovery system integration.
What's next for Fruity Chutes?
I would say that means touching back on what we talked about earlier regarding the defense industry. We're leaning into that as we see it expand and providing solutions for more uncommon, exceptional customers. So the growth of the drone defense industry, clearly, the protection of people, property, and society against hostile actors. And we find more and more opportunities in this market. So we lean into that and we see, okay, how are they trying to incorporate this into a drone that is meant to provide defense? What does it look like on their airframe? What does it look like when they're actually out and working and not just testing, and they're in a situation where there are other drones that they have to take down to avoid any hostile or accidental events? So meeting at a high level of detail what they need and incorporating that across all of our product line makes it possible to take on their needs and also to meet the needs of the many, many, many new applications for UAS that are emerging, because you just see more and more possibilities for drones popping up all the time. And in most, if not all cases, they need something to recover it, something to provide safety. And so if there are such and such many applications that drones can be used for, then there are that many different things to take into account when providing a solution for the recovery.
And for my final question, what message would you like to leave regarding the future of the drone industry?
Safety should be a forethought, not an afterthought. And prioritizing safety opens doors in the drone industry, clearly, as can be seen by all of the different standards, guidelines, regulations, rules that are becoming more and more implemented and just increasing in number and in detail. Companies that incorporate recovery systems show their customers and investors that they value safety, thereby gaining the confidence and trust of their interested parties. And additionally, incorporating a parachute recovery system significantly increases successful outcomes for companies working to meet various FAA, CAA standards for flight over people. And that is, of course, becoming a growing interest for many companies in the drone industry. So we are here to help and be involved and provide solutions for all these people.
That's it for episode 383 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Gene, Janice, and Gene Engelgau of Fruity Chutes. I want to thank them for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about Fruity Chutes or want to connect with Gene, Janice, or Jane, check out the webpage at fruitychutes.com, and it's spelled FRUITYCHUTES. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.